Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Battlefield podcast. Today, we have a much requested guest, the CadWoman. Hello, how are you? Would you like to introduce yourself with people that don't know?
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm the CadWoman, obviously. Battlefield content creator for, oh god, like I think 4 years at least full time, and a bit on and off before. And yeah, pretty much making similar content to you. But yeah, just trying to. Actually, it's a lot of leaks and news right now, but I'm trying
Yeah,
to focus more on tips and tricks videos and just trying to get people enjoy the game more and understand the game. So that would be my main focus usually, but
I
since
should.
there's no game right now.
Battlefield should hire you to make those tips and tricks for the game itself. I think
Oh,
that's
no.
always been lacking. So I've always wondered about your name. Why the CadWoman? What does that mean?
That's actually a question that I'm getting a lot. Um, CAD with CAD, so that stands for Computer Aided Design, which is basically CAD
Okay,
software. So
CadWoman. Okay.
that's what you're using for CAD drawings. And when you're working as I was working as an engineer before, so I have a degree in automotive engineering, and
Okay.
I worked in the industry for 5 years, and then lost my job like shortly before the pandemic, actually. And
Okay.
then like during the pandemic, I started experimenting with YouTube a bit more again. And then in 2021, I thought, oh well, I'm just gonna focus on this and let's see what happens.
Well, it's worked out
Yeah.
great for you so far. That's actually, I was not, I never made that connection. The CAD woman, CAD drawings, CAD developer. That's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, so today, chat, we're gonna talk about obviously the big controversial article that just released a couple days ago. People debating whether or not it even matters because people are questioning the sources. But I think it definitely matters. It's definitely very interesting, causing a big fuss in the entire community right now.
Yeah.
Um, So before we do that, I want to ask you about your general feelings about Battlefield 6 first. I'm sure we've both made many videos on this, but how are we feeling on the game?
Um, well, I mean, we've seen all of those leaks starting, I think in March or something. I can't remember when the first playtest was, but they frequently pop up, and I think we've seen an increase in everything during these like quality. In well, like I think the game looks like it evolves throughout the last few months from what we've seen, and it looks good. Like from what we've seen so far, I mean, for a playtest, it looks good.
Yes, it does.
Not gonna lie about that. I still have my issues with what they said about the class system and everything. Bit of a, I know it's a controversial topic in the community as well,
Yeah, it's they get
and
so up in arms about it. It's
very
crazy.
different opinions. And I mean, I don't think there is really a right or wrong, but I don't know. Like I'm on the Battlefield 4 team actually with this.
Okay. This is interesting because I've made so many videos on this, and you're definitely right. There's so many differing opinions that they're gonna have to do something generalized that tries to compromise, I feel like. Or they'll do the dice thing and they won't change a single thing, and they'll release another statement and being like, well, this is actually our direction. We're just not going to do anything to change this.
I was actually wondering if the feedback that is giving so much right now to this class system, if it has any impact on their decision, if they would even change anything or not,
I don't know.
or
Dice
if
is.
it's just like that's our direction. So live with it.
I think the initial post. I spoke about this with Ghost Gaming. He said that when they released that initial class system post, it came off to him as like, this is our direction.
Hmm.
So take that. And
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me. One of the biggest points that I saw under my videos about the class system was, oh, of course we're going to have open weapons because of skins. And I was like,
That's what I thought as well,
yeah,
actually.
probably, but
It might be one reason, though. I think it might be a reason.
yeah.
Another reason might be that they tried it in 2042, and people seem to be okay with this. At least after the introduction of the partial class system.
I don't know. I think a lot of the Battlefield community isn't even playing 2042, and I think that's why we saw such a visceral reaction against open weapons. But to be fair, a lot of people on Reddit and Twitter, I mean, I call them gaming tourists. They're not going to play the freaking game. They're not. Like, a lot of them will try it when it comes out, but they're not going to actually play it for a long time. So a lot of them just go around subreddits, leave their opinion, and then leave. But the thing you pointed out about the playtest looks good compared to the article, which is all doom and gloom. There's big discrepancies between what we're seeing and what we're actually hearing about.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I thought as well.
The first thing that struck me as pretty hilarious in the article was the supposed player goal from EA, which is apparently 100 million players. And the article mentioned that the most successful Battlefield commercially of all time, which is Battlefield 1, only reached, quote, maybe 30 million. And that's, of course, across all platforms.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I have some thoughts about this.
Like, I thought it was, when I read it with the 100 million players, I was like, no. What are they thinking? Which kind of game they're making? Like, it made me feel like EA has kind of lost the connection to the actual Battlefield audience, and they have no idea what their audience actually is. Because I feel like they're expecting this Battlefield to be kind of numbers as a Call of Duty. But it's a different audience. And I don't know, I always feel like Battlefield 1 was in such a good spot player-wise. Like with its player count. And it was the most successful Battlefield. But that was 8 years ago, though. So maybe you could expect more numbers these days. Since the industry in general is bigger now. But 100 million...
It's just...
I don't know. What I'm guessing, actually, is that we've heard about this Battle Royale and that it's supposedly free to play. And what I'm guessing is that they believe they can hit these goals with the Battle Royale, but not with the actual multiplayer.
Yeah, it would only have to be with another game mode. And yeah. This is where I segue into my sort of... I had thoughts about this. So when I initially heard 100 million players, obviously I thought it was ridiculous. You're going to have the most successful Battlefield game ever times like 3 or 4. People were saying, oh, they're never going to replicate the general aura or like the general impressive nature of the BF1 trailers or anything like that, even though Battlefield Labs leaks look great and there seems to be a lot of hype around that. I had an interesting thought a couple days ago. So you mentioned the Battle Royale, and then there's that Gauntlet mode that leaked, and of course the Battle Royale is going to be free to play or supposedly free to play. But with the player goal in mind, I started thinking about, okay, well, how are they going to plan on hitting that aside from the game modes? And dude, one thing that I could not shake out of my mind was SBMM. Because if they want to hit a player goal, keeping players around by like literally protecting them would probably be a massive corporate interest. However, from what we've seen in the labs leaks, there's nothing like that at all. So hopefully I'm just thinking about something that doesn't matter ultimately. I
really hope that you're wrong about this.
Yes, I do.
That would be terrible, because that would turn it into a Delta Force 2.0.
Oh my god.
I don't think anyone wants this.
Oh my god, we can definitely talk about Delta Force at the end. I am so done with the...
I can remember because it said that with the playtest, I can remember because I played the, like, whatever it was, alpha and beta of Delta Force, and it didn't feel like it did in the final game. So probably because there were not so many players, and there was either no SBMM at all in these tests, or they turned it down to a minimum. So I think in a playtest you wouldn't recognize it anyways, because you don't have enough players.
There were AI as well. And I think it was... Yeah, in Delta Force
Yeah.
early on, and that would mask it.
Yeah, earlier that was the
It would
first
mask
lie.
it, and I think my whole conspiracy theory, that's fucking intentional. They intentionally during the playtests masked the matchmaking with AI, because of course if you're getting aimbotted by an AI through smoke, it's going to be super hard to tell anything about any sort of matchmaking at all, or game experience, or how it's supposed to play. So Tencent moves in different ways, okay? They're very shady. They really are.
That was not a good thing they pulled there.
We will touch on this later. That's definitely very interesting. I didn't think about that when it came to what we're going to talk about today. But 100 million players sounds ridiculous. I would love for it to happen, though. I'm going to say that right now. I would be ecstatic. Could you imagine? After BF5 in 2042, the repeated just incredible negativity, worst games ever back to back, and then BF6 comes out, 100 million players, no SBMM, FPS is saved, steals everyone from COD. It'd be insane.
That would be amazing as a content creator. I would not.
Oh my god! Please.
I would be fine with this. But I don't really see how they want to... I mean, the article mentioned that there's a time frame after release when they want to... Within this time frame, they want to achieve these 100 million players. But we have to consider that I think players are very, very cautious about this game and are very careful approaching it. And I don't think that so many players will rush out and buy it on day one, because they were burned with 2042. So a lot of players are like, I'm just going to watch this for 2 weeks or a month and see if it's really good, and then I'm going to buy it. So I think there will not be on day one, there will not be this like instant peak in players. Because people are just so like...
I think you're underestimating the power of the Battlefield trailer team to cope people. I really think like the Battlefield trailer team, as we know, is essentially undefeated. They carried 2042 so hard. They made mid-season like Halloween AI events look insane with the trailers. Like
it's true, yeah.
And so I don't know. The Battlefield player base, I've already seen people under my videos going like, I'm gonna pre-order. Like, Enders, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pre-order. I'm like, that's not my problem. So like what can I even do? Yeah, it's up to them. Part of me though really wants people to stick it to them for 2042. I ultimately would love to hear that. Well, I don't know if I would love to hear it, but they deserve the sales if the game is good, but they also deserve less sales as a result of burning people. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Like, I feel like for the really passionate developers, I would love for them this game to be successful.
Yeah.
So, but then for the things that EA is doing, sometimes, not all of the time, but a lot of times to the games, it's like, sometimes it's like they don't really understand that when they deliver a really good game, they will automatically get these sales and their profit and everything.
Oh my god. Ugh. Like, the decision making sometimes is just so confusing. It's like, guys,
yeah,
this is not a complicated subject. Like, if you just do what the players are asking for, they will actually buy the game.
But then again, the players are asking for so many things. Like we said with the class system, there is no one thing that the players are asking for. You
they want 87 things.
Different opinions on it. So I can imagine that sometimes it's really hard to figure out, okay, what does the bigger player base actually want in the game? And I do get that the developers also want some creative freedom, aside from what the players want. So they want to move forward, they want to improve things, maybe try something new. But especially with Battlefield, sometimes they're just reinventing the wheel where it's not necessary. So this is a bit of a tradition, actually.
It is a tradition, unfortunately, a large tradition. Okay, segueing off that. So the other thing the article mentioned was the single player campaign and some internal workings at DICE and turmoil and ego battles versus studio developers and all that.
Yeah, I've read that.
Apparently, the single player campaign is 2 years behind schedule. They were not able to salvage much, if not anything, from Marcus Leto's studio, Ridgeline Games, which was shut down, which to me is incredibly difficult to believe personally, because maybe I just don't understand how that would even make any sense. But how do you spend 2 years working on campaign and then all of a sudden there's just nothing to actually utilize from that? My gut tells me that's some sort of maybe like a screw you from Marcus Leto. I don't know. Maybe there's some rights they have to it they refuse to give to EA. Part of me says that wouldn't make any sense because the studio's under EA's control.
Yeah,
but
that wouldn't make any sense, I think.
Why? What are your thoughts on that?
I was actually, when I read that part, like with the first part that he mentioned with the layoffs and the burnout with the developers and everything, it wasn't really surprising.
No, it wasn't surprising to me either.
When I was working as an engineer, it was pretty much the same. That was the reason why I lost my job, because of a huge wave of layoffs, because, of internal restructuring for whatever reason. So that's happening in each and every industry. So that was not really surprising. But reading that they've worked on this for 2 years and then there's nothing. That was really surprising, because I did understand that they were saying like that they could not work in the same way as an established studio, because they were just building the studio up, so they couldn't work at the same pace or same efficiency or whatever. I do get this, that it would take some time to build a new studio, but that there was nothing they could use. That's kind of strange. So the only thing that I could imagine happened was that they really went into a completely different direction than what EA wanted. But then again, how can they work on this for 2 years without anyone noticing and without anyone saying, this is not really what we want?
I think part of the article mentioned on the campaign specifically, there weren't proper checks. I'm pretty sure the article mentioned that. There weren't proper frequent checks on the campaign, and then the decision to essentially vault the studio was made on that. I think the article said, quote, fateful last check or something like that. So
right.
There was something wrong there.
Right.
And then, of course, what Marcus Leto said after the studio was shut down, he said on Twitter he didn't know that would happen, number one. And then he said he has absolutely nothing nice to say about EA, which is not good for the game.
It's just what I'm guessing what happened is that his vision for this campaign did not meet what EA wanted. And they just told him
scrapped it,
not the nicest way. And so they probably got off in a fight, and then he left and they said, oh, we're going to close down the studio, and then everyone else have to test to take over, or whatever happened there. But it makes me a bit concerned about what kind of campaign we're getting. So
yeah, I've always
2 years behind. That's a lot.
There was that campaign leak recently that showed it. It was like a minute-long thing. I think Temporal data mined it. Very early looking. Like things are untextured placeholders. A bunch of different things just looked, not finished.
That looked so early.
It looked very early. And later on in the article, it said, if needed, they will most likely cut campaign content to focus on multiplayer, because of course the priority is multiplayer, secondary priority would be campaign in order of importance. I lost my train of thought. What else was I going to mention? Oh, the campaign's importance to the game overall. A lot of people consider a full-fledged AAA game being sold for what now? I don't even know, chat. What's the deluxe edition going to be? $140 this one? Who even knows? A lot of people want everything with that sort of price tag. They want campaign, they want multiplayer, they want BR. So how important do you think a campaign is in general to the entire game as a whole? Because I'll tell you, personally, I have never personally cared much about the campaign. I'm obviously like the sweaty multiplayer guy. I'm going to be playing multiplayer. So unless the campaign gives you multiplayer unlocks like I want to say BF3's campaign did. Maybe BF4 as well. I'm probably not going to be touching it for much time.
I actually, because you mentioned it, I did not like this at all in Battlefield 3 and 4, that you had to play the campaign to unlock stuff for the multiplayer. Because I want to have the choice if I want to play this campaign or not, because it kind of forces you to play it, even though maybe you're not a single player kind of player, kind of guy, and you just don't like it, so you have to play it.
That's definitely very
think,
intentional, though.
I just think that, like, for me, a campaign is always something that gives me a first connection to the game. It introduces you to the lore, to the characters, or at least to the lore. So I missed this a bit in 2042 because I thought this would have been really useful, because in 2042 that lore was all over the place.
Oh my god.
And you can read through the codex. I don't know if anyone except for Comet ever did this.
Chad, have you ever read through
a great job summing all of this up, but I've never read through all of this. It's just so much, and it's like there's a bit of this here and there, and this happened, and then this happened, and it's like, okay, but well, it's not so interesting.
I
don't want to read a book. I want to play a game.
No, exactly. I can confidently tell you that the codex in 2042 is a complete mystery to me to this day. I don't know if I've ever read maybe any paragraph. I always think it's funny when you're loading into like a multiplayer match and there's a quote from the lore of 2042 from some like specifically named character, and we're all just like, who is that? What? Exactly. Like it'll say like the tiger. I'm like, what? Who is the tiger? I don't know who this is.
And that's what I think what a good campaign is actually for. It connects you to this lore, and then with this kind of background, or with with this lore in your head, you're getting into the multiplayer. And it gives you, I think it just gives you a deeper connection with the game. But then again, I don't know when this was. I think on like a few years back, I did a poll on Twitter and asked people, I think it was for Battlefield 1, how many of them have played the single player, the war stories? And it was not even 10% who had played those war stories. And I was like, okay, I thought they were actually pretty good, but I can understand that people spend so much more time in the multiplayer, they just skip the single player.
Battlefield is a multiplayer shooter. That is why people buy Battlefield. And my argument has always been, I genuinely don't think the single player for Battlefield matters enough to warrant even funding or working on it. I really think that time, money, effort would be better allocated on additional multiplayer content. Especially now in the live service era, where it's uncertain whether or not we're going to get past 2042 levels of content in BF6. BF6 could look as amazing as it wants. If the content every few months is not up to par, if we're getting drip-fed content, it's going to be brutal like 2042's content was, where we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. So
I think live service definitely has changed a lot. How games, or how we expect games to work as well, and the kind of content that we're getting. And I think it was I'm not sure, but I think I read this, or I thought it. Not quite sure if I read this in the article. But when the guy wrote that this could probably lead to a delay in the campaign, I thought that with the developers burning out and everything, and because of the layoffs, they're probably more under pressure. Because there is a bit less people working on the same stuff. I could imagine, or I'm afraid that there will be a delay in the seasonal content as well. So kind of like what happened with 2042, 2042 is probably a terrible example, because that was like the worst case, or let's hope it stays the worst case.
Yeah.
So they had to fix a lot of the mess that was released, and then they had to delay the seasonal content. So I hope that this is not happening again, and we're basically getting a good seasonal content really every 3 months. And it's not like, oh yeah, we have to maybe in 6 months.
What would be the minimum? What would be the minimum amount of acceptable content in your eyes per season? If we're talking number of maps, number of weapons, what they're doing with everything else.
I mean, if the leaks are true, then the game already launches with a lot more weapons than we've seen in 2042. Actually, more weapons than we have in 2042 right now.
I think the numbers, like, at what Temporal said,
Could
50
50 something it was. Yeah,
52 or something.
something like this. Yeah. I don't know how many weapons we have right now in 2042, but I think it's even less. I could be wrong though.
It's close if it's
Um,
not less.
But it launched with, I think, 22 weapons, so there was not enough. And I can't remember with how many maps it launched, but I think it was like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
So
it's all
where?
buried under like PTSD for me. Probably, it was under 10, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. So that was a bit strange. But I hope it. First of all, it launches with more content, so we start with a lot more. And
Chat said
map-wise,
7 at launch for 2042.
so
it was even
that's
less.
not much. It's not much. But I would say that one map is not enough per season.
Oh, it's not.
So definitely, I'd say like 2 to 3 would be alright if we're talking like really battlefield scale maps and not stadium. So not like this size, that was just like small size and infantry only. So really like battlefield sized maps. And with the weapons, I think like around, considering we already have so many weapons, I would probably okay with about 6. And then
Per
another
season.
maybe per season.
Ooh.
It would be fine with me.
You're maybe more this is interesting. I think what they're gonna do with the content is, you said 2 to 3 maps per season. It's probably gonna release with more.
As a minimum.
Minimum, yeah, minimum.
Yeah.
I think what they're going to do is BF6 is probably going to release with more maps, so they're probably going to give us 10, 8, 10,
Yeah,
11,
I'd say
something.
probably around 10.
I think what they're going to do is they're going to give us 2 maps per season, or 1 map per season, and they're not going to learn. And then as far as weapons are concerned, you're exactly right with the base amount of weapons being more. So I think what they're going to do is it's either going to be 1 to 2 maps per season with 2 to 4 weapons, 1 to 2 gadgets, and obviously a battle pass, and then something else maybe. I think that's what they're going to do. I think live service really limits the amount of content they can guarantee per season, because I obviously premium, they advertise the game with all that content being specifically mentioned, right? Like, we're gonna give you this amount of, like, I don't think they named the DLC when the game initially released, but they did specify the amount of what that DLC is going to have. So that's literally advertised when you buy the game. Famously, BF1 had a DLC where they actually released 6 maps in one DLC. I believe that one was delayed, but the point is they can't just like cancel anything. They actually had to deliver that.
They had to deliver it.
That's a huge difference. Huge difference in premium versus live service. We're obviously never getting premium back. Like, of course, good things can't happen like that. But with live service, they basically guarantee less. And in my opinion, why all these developers like live service is, at a certain point, they can get away with essentially guaranteeing less. But also, if the game kind of goes under and they need to cancel it, like we saw in BF5, they actually can do that. Whereas if
they
premium,
can just stop delivering.
Yeah, they can literally just stop delivering anything, and you can't do anything. Like, okay, we're done. And with BF5, we saw that. Even though BF5, in a lot of people's eyes, I mean, it being a World War II game, take your pick at any amount of unbelievable content they could have made for that game. Battle of the Bulge, Paris, like everything.
That's still something that bugs me to this day on how much content they missed out on
Oh
in
my
Battlefield
God.
5.
And then on
Like, how
top of
much
that,
content they could have delivered for this game.
BF5 being a World War II battlefield, we're not going to see another World War II battlefield potentially ever. But if they do make another one, it'll be another decade, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Decade, 15 years until another World War II battlefield game is made. And that's not even guaranteed. So they really screwed that one up.
Yeah, that's what
I'm in a
that's what
way
I'm thinking
more
as well.
salty about BF5 than I am 2042. Because I think conceptually, 2042 is just significantly worse and less cool than BF5.
But they didn't just pull the plug
Yes, they didn't
on
just pull the plug.
2042. But then again, they kind of had to do this because they did it with Battlefield 5, and if they would have done it again, no one would ever buy a Battlefield game.
I think they knew they couldn't cancel
Yeah.
content for 2042. If
Yeah.
they,
It
could
was
you
like they
imagine
have to prove.
that we can actually stick with this?
Yeah.
And they're still
exactly.
shockingly delivering updates with fairly substantial changes. Not often, but they're still doing it. Like, just this past few weeks, they've delivered that BF3 weapon overhaul with the AN94. Like, they fixed that, and they added new attachments for some BF3 weapons. It's not much, but it's still, to me, it's very surprising they're still actually doing that.
Yeah, to me as well. I thought they really would just completely drop it after Season 7.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we wouldn't see anything anymore. Maybe like an update to fix something that is broken, but not that they're actually doing changes, or even these like the events that we got, at least shortly after Season 7. Like the events that we're getting right now, like the Mass Effect event was not actually an event, but more like there's something new in the store.
Yeah, exactly. The guys, you can buy this, by the way.
But they did deliver for a surprisingly long time.
Yes, they did.
At least something. It wasn't that much. It was not as much as we would have loved to see for the game, but they did deliver something, and they did stick with it, and even just changed things and like brought in this like partial class system and everything. So they tried.
Yeah.
Let's say they tried. And they didn't. I mean, they didn't just drop it. So, but they, like you said, they couldn't.
No,
They had to prove
could
that
never do
they're
that.
still able to stick to it, and then whatever mess they made, they can clean it up.
Is your cat in her little bed behind you, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh,
She's sleeping.
very nice cat. Oh, no. So we have a couple things we could continue to talk about. Would you do you want to talk about the class system for BF6 and all that surrounding it, or do you want to talk about we talk about Delta Force? We could also talk about 2042 and whether or not well, let's talk about the class system maybe.
Yeah, we can talk about the class system first.
So you mentioned you're kind of on the BF4 train. My position is I don't personally care what they do because I'll deal with anything. Like I've played so many Battlefield games. At a certain point, it doesn't matter what they do with the class system. Like
Okay.
you can't prevent me from from finding the best shit, okay? Like but I do think ultimately, even though I don't care what they do, I've always maintained they need to listen to the community regardless of if the community makes any sense. And I think the community is begging for BF4. I think a lot of the community thinks BF4 provides strict weapon locks, where it actually doesn't. It really doesn't. It's probably one of the most open.
Yeah.
It's the most open class restrictive weapon system in Battlefield history for sure. BF3 was stricter, so was BF1.
Yeah, that's true. Yes. I just think that Battlefield 4 is kind of a good middle way. But then again, and I heard this point a lot in my comments as well, where people said, but if you want Battlefield 4, then they can as well open it up. Because reducing it to like this partially locked weapons, it just doesn't make more sense. Because as a recon, you can also play what is it, a shotgun.
Yeah.
So you still cannot tell if this recon only has a sniper or if they can also
Shotgun
beat
and
you in close quarters combat. You don't know, but that's the whole point. Or for me, that was always the whole point of the class system or of the restricted weapons, that you can read the gunfights and you can read the classes, and you know that. Like for Battlefield 1, for example, you knew there is a sniper over there, and if I'm just closer to them and I have an SMG or maybe I don't know how it's called, Hellreel or something. I haven't played it in a while.
yeah.
But I will probably win this gunfight. And with the open class system, you never know what you're going up against. So that's the point with the like closed versus open system. So I think that it's probably more this thought of like pleasing everyone that I'm just going towards this Battlefield 4 system, because I think it would probably be something that a lot of people would be okay with, and a lot of people that are more for the stricter system and for the open system, because they can find something. Everyone can find something in this system. So it's a little bit restricted, but it's also a little bit open. But maybe it's not the best way to go with as well. I don't know.
People
Because sometimes
want
when I'm playing
weapons.
2042, I'm thinking like it's kind of cool that I can select every weapon no matter the class I play. So I can stick to a class I feel comfortable with playing, or to a specialist in this case, and I can pick whatever weapon I want. So there's a lot of pros and cons to this, like for each of these systems. So
For sure.
that's what I said at the beginning. There's so many opinions, and there's not really a right or wrong to this.
I do
I
think
think
there's
at
some
the
facts though that a lot of people gloss over.
there's
So, first of all, I think a lot of Battlefield players want in their goal, one of their goals is they want weapons to play a defining role when it comes to classes.
yeah.
And if you want weapons to define the classes, you do have to be more restrictive. So you have to go with a system like BF1.
Yeah.
And another point people really gloss over, or maybe a misconception the Battlefield community has a lot of the time, is classes really help gameplay readability. To a certain point, they do. You know, a medic has a certain amount of gadgets, but
Yeah.
class readability, in my opinion, most of the time doesn't really matter for weapons. It matters most for gadgets. Big point is, if you're in a tank playing with someone, you know to kill engineers first. Because gadgets, not because they're an engineer. Oh my god, they have a carbine. Oh my god. No, it's because they have a rocket launcher. And the thought process a lot of Battlefield players assume is that what you mentioned. Oh, in BF1 they have a sniper rifle and I have this weapon. Maybe I can take this engagement. Sometimes that happens. But I would say, in my personal experience, 99% of the time, the thought process is much more simplistic. It's, I see this person.
I shoot.
Can I kill this person?
Yeah.
No. I reposition. Can I kill this person now? Yes. I kill that player. That is really how 90+% of the engagements go in Battlefield. It isn't this unbelievably complex thing where it's, I have this weapon, we're at this distance, can he kill me with what weapon he has? Okay, blah blah blah. Like it's really not that complex. And Marble Duck, who some of you might know, he might be coming on the podcast as well. I'm gonna try to drag him out of the darkness. But Marble Duck recently made a video on his channel detailing this exact point, where the Battlefield player base at large, in his opinion and also in my opinion, vastly overcomplicates the average engagement in Battlefield, and takes actually too much into account when it comes to fights. They don't realize that it's actually much more simplistic.
It's a fair point, yeah.
But I detailed making of I made an entire video about how I would go ideally, class locking weapons in Battlefield 6, and I think this system would satisfy what people actually truly want in BF6's class system. And it was ultimately a modern version of like BF1's class system. That's basically how it was. BF1, because it was such a different setting and they were so limited. I mean, half the weapons in BF1 aren't even real. So they were very, very limited when it comes to weapons. I mean, anyone that knows any sort of World War I history, bolt actions were basically the cream of the crop. You know, that was what they were using most of the time. So with those restrictions in mind, BF1, they went about it in a very, actually fantastic way. They assault, submachine guns, shotguns, medic with, some full auto weapons like the Avtomat, and they give medic SLRs. Support had light machine guns, and recon had bolt actions. Very, 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 very restrictive, defined the classes, identity was established, right? And that is what people, I think, want. On top of the gadgets. Because the gadgets are even more important when it comes to class identity than the weapons. But in tandem, if you restrict both of them heavily, it really, really defines the classes out. And that is what I think people want.
It seems like it, yeah. Because that's actually the overall feedback that I'm reading in the comments as well on my channel. So, but then again, there are also people that are saying like, I would miss the open class system if it's not there. So
I've played it all.
Like it, some people hate it. So
I'll be very interested to see if I miss it once BF6 releases. Say BF6 goes against their open class system, right? And they change what they're doing based off of the big outpouring of feedback of the class system. I'll be interested to see if they lock classes, and then I'll be also interested to see if I miss the open weapon system compared to BF6 and how they do it. So we'll see.
I don't think this will happen, but then again, we've heard about this, like that they want to post a class system part 2 or news about the class system or something, but they've said this for like 3 weeks already, and there's still nothing. So
it's gonna release. I don't even know. It'll probably be what date is it?
I think like 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, they said it will be released soon, or we will hear about it soon.
Okay,
so,
well, soon to them.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, and there's still nothing. So I'm actually waiting for this because I'm interested in this as well. Like, what else do they want to talk about when it comes to the class system? Maybe they have changed something.
My prediction is
they're reacting to the feedback from the community. So that would be interesting.
My prediction is number 1, they double down, or option 2, they change it. It obviously change it could be very small or it could be very big. So we'll see what they do in terms of that. Yeah. I'm like 70% leaning towards they're gonna double down. That's just how DICE is.
Well, it would be interesting, or it would be cool, because we know Portal will return. If you could just create a Portal server and then you can kind of create your own class system and just test it out and see how maybe the players react to it. Or DICE could do a playlist and just, see what people play more. Maybe they play more with the open system. Maybe they play more with a locked system, a restricted system. It's just for me personally, I think it would be interesting to see if it's just, I don't know, like sometimes you have just a minority that's very loud, but then you have a huge part of the player base that is maybe okay with the open system and they are just not saying anything. You never know.
Of course, well, a lot of the feedback,
an overwhelming majority that absolutely want all of this restricted. It's always been hard to tell.
I would love for a complete poll. Could you imagine like being able to poll every single Battlefield player? Of course, it's impossible, but yeah, that'd be interesting to see. One thing you touched on Portal. So Portal for me is like a very controversial thing for me, because I really feel as though if we're gonna have another version of Portal in Battlefield 6, which isn't it confirmed, or were the leaks?
Fleckfire talked about it in a video that he made.
Yeah.
Like he's not making too many videos, but in one of them, he said that Portal will return. That was confirmed.
The 2042 Portal, the execution for me was just absolutely abysmal for one large reason. Battlefield players love their RSP and their customizability and all that sort of stuff, but I think Portal was just very poorly executed because it actually allowed for too much customization. There wasn't any structure, and we see that now in Portal. If you open up in 2042, it's basically just a bunch of nonsense that I really don't think you should be able to change. So I think if Portal comes back, they need to be far more heavily restrictive as to what you can actually change. I would much prefer to see a system more akin to how you could create a server in systems like BF3 and BF4, where it is a lot more streamlined, it is a lot stricter, but the result is people make servers that actually make sense to play. You don't open Portal and see 24/7, 1000% damage, El Alamein, like die in game, die in real life servers. Like you don't see those in BF4. You'll see hardcore servers, right?
Yeah.
You won't see 24/7, 200% XP bot farms. Like that is just utterly stupid.
I think that was what you just said with the farms. That was the big problem with Portal. They did advertise this as this like huge playground where you can create your own experiences. And I can remember we had this trailer with the soldiers going against each other with the knives and the defibrillators. And then I think there was one mode that was advertised with EOD bots against tanks or something like this, which looked nice. And it was like, okay, there's a lot of potential. But then on day one, you opened up Portal and there was like XP farm, XP farm, XP farm, kill farm, kill farm, kill farm. That was what Portal was all about for a while. And then they stopped it and they had to restrict the XP on it. And then people didn't touch Portal anymore.
By the way,
even the good modes, because they didn't get any XP on it.
The XP thing is so avoidable. I can't believe they didn't foresee that.
Yeah.
We're gonna give you a custom server thing with insane customizability, and nobody at DICE was like, guys, they're probably just gonna make XP farms. Nobody thought that. Like, to me, that was so obvious that was gonna happen. I don't know. You allow people to create whatever they want, and then you don't restrict XP. Like, of course they're gonna make something that basically allows them to complete the battle pass in a day.
But then you had all those like good experiences where people just wanted to play together, and they couldn't get XP anymore.
Yeah.
There were a few things that definitely went wrong there.
Portal's a great example of something that I think looks cool, sounds cool, execution not great. Like in reality, it just turns out to be bad because there's no structure. And I'm so sorry, but you cannot give the Battlefield community particularly unlimited customization. They don't know what to do with it. They don't. It's just insane.
Yeah, but still, I think Portal was like wasted potential.
Yeah, definitely.
It had some great potential, but it was just not there yet. Maybe it will be better in the next game. I still have hopes.
If they don't heavily streamline it, it will be the same thing. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I think they need to heavily restrict what you can actually do in it. I think the World War II versus...
They have to find a solution for this,
World War II versus BF3 sounds cool. In reality, I don't know. I don't think it works. Then I think we can segue... Last thing here, we can talk about Delta Force. and our experience with that game. People have really been confused with me about Delta Force because at the beginning I saw it to be like, I think pretty much every Battlefield YouTuber saw it to be a game with like fairly huge potential. That potential had to be accessed with them making some correct decisions, like removing AI. And then I just overall just 180'd on it. Made a video recently about why I actually stopped playing the game. I mean,
I didn't even bother doing a video like this.
Just had so many sus things going on, and in my opinion, they're lying about a lot of stuff in that game. They're lying about the player count. They're lying about most likely their matchmaking as well. And it's one of those things where people want like hard evidence of it. The evidence is I played Battlefield every day for like 10,000 hours. I know the feel like the back of my hand. The game does not play like Battlefield. You go play any Battlefield game, then you go play Delta Force. The difference is so obvious that I can't believe there is even an argument against the fact that this game has SPMM. It's so clear to me every time I play it.
It is. Yeah, it is. I felt like Delta Force was it looked so promising at the beginning, and I thought it would probably be something nice to play until the next Battlefield is released.
Oh, of course, it would have been an amazing segue.
And also, of course, in our case, to create content for. It was like a great opportunity, and it felt so good in the first like alpha or playtests or whatever they did call it. It seemed to be so good, and I can remember streaming it, and I was like, man, it just feels so good, this game, and the hit rate is great, and whatever.
Yeah.
And then at some point, there were more and more people pointing out, like, hey, this feels like we're playing against bots. And it was just, there's, I think, weeks before Delta Force came out and said, yeah, we're going to remove them. They didn't even say, yes, there are bots, but it was like, yeah, we're going to change something about this.
Yeah.
They didn't even acknowledge this, that they were caught, but it was more like, yeah, we're going to change it.
And even worse, it was bots with like TTV names.
Yeah, exactly. You had no clue that you were actually playing against bots. Having bots at the beginning when you're on a low level, I thought was not the worst idea. So you can have some time getting into the game and getting used to the mechanics. And so I think the 2042 has it's kind of a similar playlist. I think when you're below level 10, you can get into this, and you get matched with other low level players, or bots as well. So that's not necessarily a bad idea, but disguising them as real players, and you're thinking like, oh, hey, there's a streamer or something on this server as well, and then you saw, like, I think it started when someone started looking up all of these names on Twitch if they're actually existing, and they weren't, and that's when it became obvious, and it was like, no, there's something going wrong here.
Some people in my chat are still claiming there's still AI. 2 people individually, actually, on my YouTube chat and Twitch. This guy said Middle Eastern servers still have bots under non-AI names, and this guy in my Twitch chat just said bots still exist. So I believe that.
So yeah, I believe that. Well, so that was the first thing that they've done wrong. That they tried to sneak this in without anyone telling. If they would have been more open about this and say, so if you're below level 5 or something, you will like play against 80% bots or something, or 50% bots or something, just to get used to the game, because that's just what we want. That's our design decision. That would be alright. But not like, the game makes you feel like you're actually really good at the game in the first few hours. And then it's like, what the hell happened? Then you have this cut, and then you don't know what actually happened.
One of the most damning experiences that myself and my teammates and I experienced was early on, and continuing a little bit after release. Delta Force was having tournaments. Twitch Rivals, they were holding their own tournaments, all that sort of stuff. You would expect, good players to sign for the tournaments, and they did. Twitch Rivals was a little bit different, with obviously streamers being in there, but there there were good players in Twitch Rivals. There was a lot of people that were obviously had a lot of FPS experience. But what was funny, the tournaments were actually easier than normal lobbies.
Really?
It felt easy. No, I'm serious. Ask anybody who played with me. Focus, Meatloaf, Nox, any of my teammates. I swear to you, the Twitch Rivals tournament was absolutely easier than a normal Delta Force lobby sometimes. And that to me was like,
obvious.
yeah, there's some crazy shit going on here. And the reason for that's super obvious. They're truly loading in a bunch of randomly selected players in this Twitch Rivals lobby, right? Whereas matchmaking, it isn't exactly clear that they are loading in truly a random assortment of players without taking any factors into account. With tournaments, you avoid the matchmaking entirely. You select players to participate, which of course provides a random pool. So the feeling of the tournament versus the feeling of the normal game, on top of the difference in feel of a normal Delta Force game versus a normal Battlefield game, it's just the most obvious thing to me ever that they are absolutely lying or not being entirely truthful about how Delta Force's matchmaking actually functions.
And that's so sad. I felt like it's good to have this franchise coming back, even though it's in a different way and a bit disconnected from what it was in the past. But it's like, I feel like they really messed it up. Like it was
for me, I would be able to tolerate it at least if the amount of content was anywhere near substantial. But
yeah, that's the next topic.
Exactly. The next topic is, what are they doing with the content of the game? CadWoman, the last season before this most recent one, they called a new map, but it was actually just a night version of an existing map.
Yeah,
and then we had to wait 4 months for another map.
Which is funny because they had described before the release, they had described this roadmap with, I don't know, like
we have content made for a year.
Content, and yeah, exactly. I can remember they're saying we have the first 3 or 4 seasons are done already, and they're basically just waiting to be released. And everything sounded so good, and they were so transparent as well, or it felt like they were.
And now
at the beginning, and then it all started to go downhill and so fast. That was crazy. I've never seen something like this before, to be honest.
I really haven't. It's very strange. So on top of all the controversies with whether or not the player count's real, whether or not there's still AI, whether or not there's SBMM, the 100% botted Steam reviews, 100%. That is fact.
Steam reviews was what killed it for me eventually. There was just, it was the SBMM and all the feeling of there is something.
Yes.
You know, it started with a feeling that there is something off. And then someone came to my Discord and said, hey, you want to have a look at these Steam reviews on Delta Force because they seem kind of off. And I looked through it.
They all had a specific amount of hours.
Yeah,
they all
I made a video about it. And then 4 hours later, all of those reviews were gone.
I also made a video about it.
Oh, there was like, what are you doing?
Overall, it's just a massive missed opportunity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
God, I wanted to mention something else. The updates they're doing. So obviously, you and I were gonna play the warfare mode. You and I don't imagine us being big extraction shooter players.
No.
It's really very clear that their main focus is the extraction shooter because of extraction shooters have more long-term replayability and interest if they keep delivering content at a fairly decent rate. However, I think the warfare mode can be equally as interesting if they provide enough content. The content's another thing that I'll touch on later. The changes they were making to some of the things in Warfare just make absolutely no sense, and I think it's because they don't take Warfare into account enough, and they take the extraction mode into account more. Most obvious case, Luna wallhack arrow. That shit has been buffed. I am not even exaggerating, 6, maybe even 7 times. And in Warfare, it is an absolute menace. Like, They recently buffed how long it keeps you wall hack spotted. They buffed another Luna arrow, the electric arrow. They actually increased the radius it damages you at, which of course in Warfare is a much larger problem than in the extraction mode, because the quantity of Luna players is far higher in one server than in the extraction mode. So they're not taking any sort of Warfare versus extraction balance into account, and they're making all the wrong balance decisions. Literally all the wrong ones. They're adding shield characters, they're buffing Luna Arrow, they're buffing Electric Arrow, they're nerfing other aspects of the game that don't need to be nerfed. They're not changing weapons that need to be nerfed. Like, I'm pretty sure the SMG-45, it might be still king of the entire game, even though it's an SMG. It's just a nightmare of it.
Actually, I had this feeling early on already that they're prioritizing the extraction mode, because I felt like when you just took a look at the Twitter account, there was so much more posts about the extraction mode and so much more advertisement about the extraction mode compared to the Warfare mode. And I never really got this, because with Battlefield being basically not existing at this time when the game was released and when they had their playtest
Their window was so good.
They had such a massive opportunity to get all of those Battlefield players over into a good Warfare experience. Maybe only for the time until the next Battlefield game's released, but back then we didn't know when it will even be released or when we'll hear something about this or whatever. So I thought they had such a good opportunity. And like, just one thing I never really understood with Delta Force is why they decided to go with this setting for the multiplayer and then go with a completely different setting for the campaign. Like, they remade this campaign, but decided to not go with this setting for the multiplayer. Now imagine they would have went with this old, like, really military grounded setting for the multiplayer. Like this, and they would have actually supported it and everything. Like, this would have been like a Delta Force that would deserve the name Delta Force. And it would be an actual all-out Warfare shooter that could potentially compete with Battlefield.
Yeah, that window's gone. When BF6 comes out, I don't care how bad BF6 is, BF6 will absolutely destroy Delta Force's war. It won't even be remotely close, especially if BF6 is good. If BF6 is good, it's over for them. Over. Like, no one cares about that game anymore.
Well, except the ones playing the extraction mode, probably.
Yeah, no. Early on with Delta Force, because there was an extraction mode, I immediately thought from day one, the extraction mode is probably going to be the focus. I just hope they provide enough content
that's what I thought
the Warfare mode. Because I just thought the potential was so good, and that was the mistake, right? The mistake was, oh, well, actually, this is modern gaming, so yeah, we don't get any of this. Unfortunate.
And they shouldn't have copied, like, I'm not saying the worst Battlefield, but not the most successful one.
And early on, my opinion was, well, my opinion still is, I literally don't care that they copied a lot of stuff from Battlefield 2042, because in my mind, all I really wanted was a high quality, populated, fun Battlefield experience. But a lot of people very obviously were like, well, this is just Temu Battlefield. Like, they just
it was
copied.
The first impression of the game, actually. So it was like, you looked at the game and was like, oh, they copied this and this, oh, and this as well, and oh my god, like, it's getting more and more and more.
It was blatant too, so blatant.
Okay, well, I still give it a try, and it was fun for a bit, but then they messed it up with the matchmaking. I would still play it, but I really stopped playing it because of the matchmaking, because I don't want to, like, I don't know.
I will slog
it's so
through...
It's so much more relaxing to play 2042.
Yeah, and you watched my stream before we started this, and we know how relaxed I was playing that game. But even so, 2042 is more relaxing than Delta Force. Delta Force is quite possibly one of the most... Delta Force is one of the most fucking irritating games I've ever played in my life. It is, and with the amount of stuff they continue to add that is irritating. They buffed Luna wall hack, so I'm wall hack spotted 24/7. I'm getting shock arrowed, smoke spam. I'm now bleeding because they added a dude with a frisbee that makes you bleed. On top of toxic swarm, which basically prevents you from playing the game.
Yeah, that one.
And you have to remove the drones, and then you're allowed to play the game again.
Yeah.
Seneva shield with a grapple hook.
Yeah.
What? Oh my god. Viren airburst that puts you in a 4-second stun lock animation. And then it's guaranteed death if you get hit by it, by any sort of decent player that understands they hit you by it. The gunplay is a massive problem. The head glitching is a massive problem. Those two things combined with the map design, which is poor, by the way, it's just a nightmare. You're getting head glitched, beamed across the map by people that you can't see very well. One of the most annoying games I've ever played in my entire life, bar none. More annoying than 2042. Yep. I will completely stand on business with that. That game is a fucking nightmare to play.
Yep, I do agree.
And it's rooted in it being balanced for the extraction shooter. These things don't matter when you're fighting teams every 30 minutes. So I guess we've been talking for, God, maybe about an hour, 20 minutes now. I want to leave this with a Battlefield 6 prediction.
Oh.
A Battlefield 6 prediction. What does the CadWoman think Battlefield 6 is going to be like? How is it going to be received? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, just based on what I've seen in the league so far with my own eyes, because with the article, you never really know, you know, how
that's something we take into
the
account.
Sources are and everything, but just from what I've seen so far, it looks promising. I'm cautiously optimistic for the game, at least for the multiplayer, because that's the only thing we've seen so far. The game, from what we've heard, has a lot more parts, but we've only seen one so far, but Gauntlet. That looks good. And like, I'm a multiplayer player, so that's what's important for me. And as long as it's fun to play, as long as they hopefully deliver a good live service that also deserves the name live service, I think this game could be successful again. And with the class system, that's what I wanted to add to this as a last point. As long as everything else works and is fun, it doesn't matter if the weapons are open or not.
And that's a big thing.
In the big scale of the game, it's just a minor thing at the end. As long as the rest is fine and works, and I'm having fun playing this game, then I'm fine with an open system as well. So that's just, you know, it's not. I'm not losing any sleep over a weapon system as long as the rest of the game is good. And it looks like they're on a good track with this.
I would agree.
I've seen like 1, 2, 3 launches so far. Yeah. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
This one will be good again. So I know it's a bit of a tradition to have like a rocky launch in the Battlefield franchise.
Unfortunately, it is.
Unfortunately, but maybe we can break with this tradition this time and deliver a good game right from the start. Even if it's without a campaign for now. I would be fine with that.
One thing they have going for them is the bar is so... We've lost the bar. The bar is not there anymore, essentially. Yeah. So it's so low that I think even a launch that would be considered traditionally mediocre, I think that would be almost enough. I really do.
And just because you said that, I think considering the current state of FPS games in general,
oh my god,
having a look at like Call of Duty and everything, I think really Battlefield has all of the opportunities. They have everything on their side. They have the best chance to, even if it's not the best game or the most polished game at launch, they really have the chance to get players on their side and to play their game. If they deliver something that is just an average game that people enjoy. That's enough. That's everything we're asking for at this point.
The biggest thing for me is the first impression. The first impression for everything has to be at least acceptable. The BR, Gauntlet, single player, less so single player, but multiplayer especially. If they can just get people to go on day one, hey, this isn't half bad.
Yep.
The battle is already half won. It really is. I've always said for the longest time, this is so free. In my opinion, it's always been free for them. The opportunity here is astronomical.
Yep.
Between Battle Royale, between the multiplayer, between the direction we've seen they're already taking. Yep. All they need to do is make sure everything is relatively buckled down. There is a relatively acceptable amount of content. And past that, I think just don't do anything stupid. Which is why the class system is one of the things that we're discussing right now. Because in a lot of people's eyes, they're doing something stupid. So the solution to that is
controversial. Yeah.
Listen to the community and simply lock the weapons in any way the community wants to avoid unnecessary drama. That's it. Just don't do anything stupid. Lock in. And I think it's free. I think it's already better than 2042, guaranteed. I've made videos about this.
It already looks better than what 2042 looked at launch.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my god. Oh, the
like
2042 at launch
gameplay
was...
of 2042 is like, how did it even launch like this?
Dude, I think there's still... Chat, remind me of this on the night of BF6, by the way. There's still old clips of me playing the on launch night of 2042, and they're so funny. Like, the helicopters are lagging across the sky. There's a clip that I could guess was featured in many videos from me where I dumped like 4 magazines into one person. He didn't die. Like, it was just insane. On the I will say though, on launch day of BF6, I'm gonna save the entire launch day VOD on my channel, so we have like a 10-hour long launch reference, because I think that's important. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Battlefield Podcast. The CadWoman's links and everything will be in the description. Check her out. She makes great stuff. She's on Twitter. She's on YouTube. She even streams, I think. Don't you stream?
Not so much right now because no game to stream.
Yeah.
So, and I played 2042 for so long. I just can't anymore.
Yeah. Elaborate on. And people are like, people wonder, right? They're like, Enders, why are you so short-tempered with people sometimes? Like, listen, dude, this game is, I'm done. Like, I've been done for damn near since release. I'm just doing it for the sake of the community, basically. We're all waiting. That's all we're doing. We're waiting for the next game.
Exactly. So I'm just gonna, like, I'm on a bit of a, like, not a break. I'm still doing my videos, but for streaming, I'm just on a bit of a break, and I'm just gonna.
Yeah, totally understandable.
Like, I cannot force myself to play something I'm not really enjoying.
If there's anything you want to end this off with, feel free to. If you have anything upcoming.
No, actually not. Just thank you for the opportunity to talk about the future of Battlefield and the past and a bit of Delta Force. It was very interesting.
It was very fun.
And yeah, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much. All right, guys. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, go subscribe to CadWoman as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Be sure to comment who you want to see next.